And then I came into my body and I was so happy. I was laughing and he was crying. He was very mad. He was like, "Wow, you weren't breathing. Your heart wasn't beating. Why are you
Wow.
laughing?" I was like, "Wow, I want to go back. It was beautiful."
So I want to welcome everybody back to another episode of The Soul Inspired. Today we have Eda Hinkova with us. She has had a near-death experience. We're going to have a conversation around what that experience was, and we're going to dig deep into some spiritual talk. So first of all, thank you so much, Eda, for making it on the show, especially the time of day you're coming on. So thank you so much for being on the show.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me. I'm very excited for this. I
I
love
always
talking about all these things.
I always love getting people on who've had not only they had a spiritual or near-death experience, those types of things, but also someone who can relate in my life with my being a musician and things like that. So I thought it was a really cool thing to just have you come on, and I'm just been excited to have this conversation. So I start all the conversations the same way. Anyone who watches the show, I look at who you are now, and I look at little Ada and who you were as a child, and I try to have kind of this comparison feeling between who you were then, and you're still pretty young, so it's not like you're going over an 80-year lifespan or anything right now, but I'm trying to figure out if you have always been the same type of person and maybe who Ada was when, growing up, what kind of person you were, just kind of a little information on who you were as a little girl.
Yes. Um, if I remember, I do feel like I have returned to the r little girl version that I used to be. I used to be very spontaneous, always very talkative, um, adventurous, energetic. But the more I grew up at around like age 7 or something, I was doing top sports in gymnastics, and it was very tough. So I didn't really have any more time for the normal childhood things that kids do. So I had to have like that grown-up mentality, winning, competitive. So yeah. Then when I stopped doing gymnastics, because it was too hard and it didn't interest me anymore, because yeah, there were some bad things going on in the gymnastics world. I got to know the world of going out and drinking. And yeah, that's when it kind of went downhill, not because of the drinking, but just because I think I lost connection with who I really was and what I really liked. Like just having fun. I was having fun the wrong way, meeting the wrong people, um, or phone. So I actually fell into a depression. I remember that was from age 14 until like 4 years ago. So um, the person I was when I was depressed was, yeah, I loved darkness, everything that had to do with, yeah, evil, like literally the devil and all these things. I thought it was cool being dressed up very black and so on. But by the way, I realized something a few months ago. I never really thought why I was so obsessed with darkness. But there was a day that me and my friends from school, we did a satanic ritual, but we did it as a joke. We
Wow.
did it as a joke. And I didn't believe in these things. And I remember I was like 14 or 13, and we really did it. Like we put a needle in her finger and we said something out loud. And I couldn't really put the links together, but starting from that period, I uh, I remember I had this book, this diary, and I was writing in it how much I hated myself, how ugly I am, how everyone hates me. It was as if I was literally manifesting my own hell, creating my own hell. And then, after 8 years of struggling daily, hating my life, crying, but nobody knew because I was doing the complete opposite of being depressed, like being overly happy. so people couldn't tell. So yeah, then
Wow.
I got out of my depression through my spiritual awakening. Oh yeah, and when I was like around 18, I had the near death experience. And then when I was 21 or something, I had the spiritual awakening. I had gotten out of my depression, and now I'm so happy. Now I'm living the best I have ever lived. Yes.
Wow.
So
Well, you
that's my life.
well, that's your childhood and life in a nutshell, as they say. So that,
Yeah.
yeah, and we'll dig into the near-death experience in a moment, but I do want to touch on something you said because you said it was around 14. That seems to be an area, it's like teenagers, there's so much going on in your life, and we get affected so much from our, childhood, from our families, these types of things. So I can see why the struggle ha started happening at that time. I used to work with kids in social work, and that was around the age where it just went kind of crazy for everybody. And so I can understand how you'd get kind of go down in that dark path. And I also like how you said you kind of were creating your own hell. I hear this a lot from near-death experiences or experiencers. The ones who actually go down the hell conversation is that hell is this manifested place that we create within ourselves. This is what I hear a lot. I can't guarantee that or verify it. Just like I say at the beginning of the show, like everything we talk about, it's things that I'm feeling or thinking, but I haven't experienced that luckily. But a lot of people have had those experiences. They come to feel that over time. That is something we kind of manifest or create. So you were kind of creating that, doing some, you said with the satanic things like that. So that's you trying to figure out and understand who you were, right? So I can totally appreciate that and understand that. But then are you saying that you were doing that up until 18 when the NDE happened? So that's interesting. So yeah.
It's crazy. So this diary, I had it since I was around 12 or something, but I do remember very well that that's something I remember for like since a few months ago, by the way. But if I think back, I did start writing negative things, like negative affirmations, and I did that every day. Like
Wow.
literally every day, I was crying and writing how much everyone hates me, how I'm ugly, ugly, I'm ugly, I hate myself. Like you have no idea. It's so sad to even think about it. And I had done that up until 20 years. But not every day, but sometimes with some breaks. But like the diary was my go-to thing to do when I was feeling bad. And then after my spiritual awakening, I was looking into it. I was like, what the heck? What am I doing? I am doing this myself. And then I decided to write the opposite. So I wrote, I am beautiful. I am happy. I love my life. Everyone loves me. And yeah, then my life started switching. So yeah,
Wow.
it's
Well,
crazy.
I want to acknowledge that a little bit. And, for people that are listening in, like this is really important. This is like really important stuff because whether it's, I don't know what ages listen to the show. I think it's all over the place, but it's really important to understand that the way we're talking about ourselves and the things that we're saying to ourselves have such a large impact on our lives. And I really hope that if someone's listening in and going through stuff to be able to have the awareness to step back and look at it. It's hard. And I know when you're in that space, it's hard and we're affected by our lives. We didn't even dig into why you maybe even got to that point. That's something between, if someone's listening, it could be between them and a therapist or someone that you're working with to try to figure out why you're in that space. That's really not the point. The point is that you've realized that, through doing that, you were creating this life that this person you were becoming or in the, experiences you were having. And now you're doing the opposite. Now, that being said, not all of us have gotten or want an NDE to kind of shake things up a little bit. And it seems like you had this happen. So let's dig in a little bit of that. So how did this happen at 18? Like when did this all occur and how did you kind of get into this situation with the NDE?
So I was always very open-minded, and I always believed that there is more. Um, because I also uh, was having the wrong friends, but I don't want to call them wrong because at the end of the day, they have brought me where I am. So I sometimes like smoked weed or did a psychedelic, and I remember that I was always the weird one having the weird experiences. And it was as if I found like a gateway through the reality and that I saw that there was something more. So that was in that period.
Hmm.
And then I was back then at my ex-boyfriend's house and we were chilling and he had a jacuzzi and outside it was freezing and the jacuzzi was very hot, but I didn't really think about the fact that that's not okay to like switch from hot to cold. I didn't know that. So we were in the jacuzzi, everything was fun. And then I had gotten out of it and he wanted me to help put the thing back on. And I wanted to help him. But I just remember trying to put it on there. And he was like, "What are you doing? Why are you stopping?" But I couldn't move and I couldn't talk because it took like way too much energy. And I was like, doing this, and then I remember shaking and then, I don't know, dropping down. And the next thing I remember is that I saw like these bubbles. I can now recall. I'm just telling you what I can recall because
Yeah.
I have realized that the more I talk about it, that new things come, but if I don't, then things like fall back. So it's like a strange dream to me. I remember that there were like two bubbles and they started very small and they grew bigger. And each time I entered in one bubble and I was like in that moment, watching me or like even reliving that moment. And the things that was experiencing were the experiences in which I had felt the most emotions, happy or sad emotions. And at the end, it was as if they were being scaled, and I was deciding, or me together with everything were deciding whether was happy or not. And then it was as if I felt, or I heard, or I said, I don't know, that no, this is not it. This is not it. I cannot uh, go. I have to come back. And then I came into my body and I was so happy. I was laughing and he was crying. He was very mad. He was like, "Wow, you weren't breathing. Your heart wasn't beating. Why are
Wow.
you laughing?" I was like, "Wow, I want to go back. It was beautiful." Yeah, that's the experience. It was very, very short and I do
Hmm.
not recall many things. Yeah.
That's okay. And a lot of the times too, the point isn't to recall everything that's coming up. And in fact, I just talked to somebody today who over the years more comes, it's like it it comes more to you over your time and over your lifetime, right? And so that's why it's important to talk about these things, especially people who've had an experience like this. It obviously shaped you and made a large impression on you. And that's the most important thing, right? So, the biggest thing I took from that, so I want to just kind of go through that a little bit. So, you have this, it's almost kind of like, I don't want to say hypothermia, but it's like this, I guess, change in your body temperature kind of maybe put you into a shock. It seems like you went into shock
Yeah.
and stopped you from breathing, your heart or whatnot, whatever happened. And you had fainted then, so you had fallen when that happened,
Yeah,
or
I guess the next thing I remember is just waking up in bed and that he was crying and he said my heart didn't even beat and that I wasn't breathing. But yeah, I cannot know that. I can only know what he told me. Yeah,
wow.
maybe
He,
like one day I would want to message him again because it's been um almost 10 years since I've heard him, but maybe I just want to like get his point of view from the experience again. Yeah.
mhm. Yeah.
But now not. No.
When you just a question for you. When you had the bubbles you mentioned, you like these bubbles, were you the bubble or were you actually visually seeing bubbles? Like how does that come through to you?
No, I was literally seeing them. I had like this view and it came from below me and it went bigger and bigger and then I just like popped into a bubble and I was in that reality or like even watching me. They like switched or it was together. I can't explain that.
That's okay. Do you recall it feeling like you could see both at the same time? Like you could see yourself, but at the same time, you're in this other place.
That's how it feels. That's
Hmm.
how it feels. But like if I try to explain it, then I separate them because I can't
Hmm.
see both,
Yeah.
It's like I have experienced something that I just cannot put into words, and I try to explain it, but I know that there is so much more, but I
Hmm.
just don't know how.
Yeah. That's perfectly normal. It's very common in near-death experiences to say that the English language or whatever language you're speaking, the human language of what you are, it's very difficult to even put into words what's going on. Sometimes you eventually learn how to acknowledge it in a different way so people can understand it a bit better. But right now, this is pretty fresh still, and again, you're still pretty young, so at the same time, it's difficult to kind of put that in perspective. Some people never actually figure out how to say it. But from the way that you're describing it, it sounds similar. I mean, I've heard of something similar where someone is they're aware that they're there, like something has happened to them. So they're aware of the body, but they're also somewhere else. And it's almost like because it's a different visual experience, it's hard to actually say it. Because right now you're looking at me, I'm looking at you, we're having this conversation, and that's generally very different than what the experience feels like on the other side or at,
Yeah.
when you pass over. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like I'm getting information through. It's 3 at night, so that's the time when we're most connected. And I am thinking, I'm not thinking, but it just came up to me. What if these bubbles, they were growing, and the ones that was most that I had that I could like less accept, or that I was most connected with, what if I entered that bubble? Because I was always thinking, why two bubbles and why did I pick one?
Mhm.
So now I got this.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know.
Absolutely. And the amazing part is, and this is the thing, this is the common thing with near-death experiences again, is that whether it's a bubble, whether it's a doorway, whether it's a path, whether it's like people have different experiences, but there's the similarities are that there's usually these certain commonalities that happen. Yes, you didn't go through any tunnel and see your, great great grandmother and I guess I sit behind a tree and eat an apple and talk about what you went through in life. I mean, maybe you don't know yet. Maybe those feelings will come back online. Some people it does happen, but what you can recall is having this experience that felt different from here. Did the experience feel as real as this, you and me right now?
No, it felt more like a lucid dream. Um, so everything looked as real as in real life, but I couldn't touch. There was no how do you say senses? There were no senses, and I feel like this world is known for it. How do you say it? In this world, you can use your senses, but in that world, everything just was how it was. I no, I don't feel like it was the same. No, it was
Yeah.
more dreamy, like even less real for me than a lucid dream. Because in a lucid dream, I always like try to use my senses and touch
Sure.
walls and talk and stuff. But
Mhm.
yeah, I can't compare it
It's a
too
very
much.
interesting answer because many people say it felt more real, but that's usually the people who get to this other place. So the way that you're describing this is just from my own interpretation. I'm sure the audience that listens to near-death experiences might have their own interpretations of this, but I feel like you were, if I were to put it in any type of category of NDE, I would say you were in the transitional period. So you were in that period of moving into possibly going to whatever comes next, because some people have that period of time, whether it's the black void, whether it's this initial doorway they move through. And then once they go through that, then it really enhances
Oh,
and there's
yeah,
more
yeah.
that happens. And it feels like you hadn't quite got there, at least from your memory, you haven't quite
Hmm.
got there.
Yeah.
But in saying that it didn't feel as real, the reason I asked that question is because, as many have said, I'm kind of a truth seeker. And when I was younger, I was like completely afraid of death. That was what got me interested in near-death experiences. And I got a lot of, after reading people's near-death experiences, it gave me a lot of comfort in knowing that we possibly have more to us than this physical meat suit that we're all in. And what I would ask you though is, did it at least, even if it didn't feel real like this, like sensual touch or anything, did at least it give you the idea that you are more than the body?
Yeah, like when you say that the other people said it felt more real, I do align with the fact that it felt more real, as in the way that it was like the normal thing. It was home. It was the space where you just don't worry. Everything was okay. But back then I wasn't like I am now. So for me, it was still a strange experience. But if I think back now, I do remember I was feeling very safe and everything just was as it was. And that was what I was uh, oh, that trusted with. No, I don't know how to say it in English, but it was just a place where I just didn't have any worries. And in that, if you look at it that way, then it did feel real, like connected with everything and just being, and it is what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, that way it was real, yeah. But not like I knew that I wasn't living. I was watching, I was something else. I was not just myself. I was something bigger, or I was like everything. I don't
Hmm.
know.
That's okay. So did you feel like you were still you, but you were also part of something bigger than you?
Yeah, I still remember that I felt very mighty, but not in an egoic way. I felt
Hmm.
very powerful and just like if you had to like imagine how a god has to feel, doesn't a god feel like, you know, very powerful but very kind? That's how I was feeling, as if I knew it all, so it was all okay. Yeah.
Yeah, and one of the things I loved how you said is you said it felt very safe. It felt very, it just
Yeah.
was like it just was. You had a beingness of just being. And what's interesting, if we look at what you said earlier on when we first started talking about how the life you were living up till 18, it was in a way quite chaotic in the sense that you were kind of going down this kind of weird path. And so when you're in those places, it's like you went from completely being in self, in egoic self, to all of a sudden being in this place of just existing. And that alone would be such a shift in your sense of who you are, because that's why it would almost feel like not real, right? Because you're like, well, what was real to me is no longer there, but I just am. So I'm just like existing now. But then, so the initial, I would assume the initial reaction after coming back, you would have felt kind of like, whoa, what was that? But then as time goes on, there's this feeling of, wow, like I'm more than just this person who is doing satanic rituals and these going down this dark path. And like, so I can see why that would almost bring on a spiritual change in your, is that true? I just want to know if how that
Yeah.
impacted you.
Yeah. By the way, I only had done one satanic ritual. I don't want to sound like I'm
Right.
killing
Yeah,
animals.
yeah,
I have
yeah, yeah.
never done
Right.
anything other than that. Well, not consciously. That's important. Um, I remember when it happened, I was shocked because I used to hate my life so much that even death experience was like a little break from hell. So I was very happy that I had experienced that, like the few minutes after. But the more time after the experience, it was as if I didn't really have any effects of the experience, because I wasn't also surrounded by people that understood me. So I told people
Mhm.
my experience, because for me it was crazy, but nobody really reciprocated the same energy. So I like minimalized it and I was like, yeah, it was cool, but yeah, whatever, whatever. And then it like faded away. Um, yeah, and then I didn't really have any other No, I didn't have any other near-death experiences, but I did have other psychedelic experiences that were alike, in my opinion, and like lucid dreaming, astral projection, and yeah, spiritual awakening. That yeah, I feel like I all categorize all these things, but like I was way too young, and I was also consuming Xanax. So yeah, I really wasn't always very, very conscious. Yeah.
Wow. Well, you said a few things there. No, that's
Yeah,
amazing.
I said a lot.
No,
Sorry.
that's okay. That's perfectly fine. Because now we're talking about something else that I've actually wanted to bring up a little more. I have a few people that I've scheduled in for interviews down the road who have had both near-death experiences and psychedelic experiences. And it's not a path I've gone down too often because a lot of people who've had near-death experiences haven't had psychedelic experiences. But um I do like to sometimes look at that and compare the two. A lot of people who've mentioned this to me so far have said, yes, there's similarities, but there's some differences, especially the people who've had really strong near-death experiences, they'll say, ones that really go into depth and go
Yeah.
deep. Do you say that as well? Do you feel like there is a little bit of a difference, but they're kind of going in the same direction?
Well, I have had one experience through um, marijuana, and I remember I was in the room and I was smoking, and I closed my eyes, and I had a an experience like my near death, but with like multiple bubbles and very quickly, and I couldn't really grasp it, but it was as if I tried, but I wasn't far enough. And I told the others in the room, and they were like, "You're crazy. What are you talking about?" So I was having this anxiety. What happened? What happened? Act normal. Ugh, I don't even like thinking about it because smoking weed always made me very, um, very conscious, but I wasn't around the right people. So that experience, I do, um, find it a little bit similar, but not. It's as if it's in layers or in scales, and that experience was the closest one to the near-death experience.
Mhm.
But not very close. But I don't know how to explain it. It does remind me of the near-death experience. And the other psychedelic experiences were, yeah, it was more like hallucinating and seeing things, but the feeling I had was very close to the near-death experience, as in this connection and knowing that there is something more, just knowing. Yeah, that, yeah.
Absolutely. The way that I've interpreted it is I think that psychedelics and different things you're doing are trying to see how I'd say this. I personally believe that when we come here and our souls incarnate and come into this body, this vehicle that we're going to use for 100 years or whatever, we have this kind of grounding. We get grounded in and we're in our minds, our brains are we're somehow attached and we're stuck in here. When someone has a near-death experience, they get an NDE because they get in a car accident, they go flying through the vehicle, they want to leave their body, they jump right out. They have a drowning experience, they jump right out. They have a, hypothermic experience, whatever it is, you jump out. So there's this disconnect that you come out of this vessel, this vehicle. I think psychedelic drugs or psychedelics in general, and I'm not promoting that right now. But I think that what they can do is they can also be a way to escape the boundaries of our body. That's what's happening. I think there's moments when people can actually jump out, um, and um, and that's why you see people who do ayahuasca ceremonies and they're around positive individuals and they have these very psychedelic experiences where it's a beautiful experience. Some of them are absolutely horrible experiences. That's why I don't recommend or push them on anyone. But my point is there is definitely a connection there because some people try to say, oh no, it's just that's why NDEs aren't real because see you can get it with a psychedelic and you can mimic it. No, probably the psychedelic or the drug is taking you away from your actual what you think is reality. You're jumping
Yeah.
away from it and you're having that moment. And that's what I believe, at least. And I'm not even someone who experiments in that stuff, but I know about it, and I have many friends who had deep conversations with me about it,
Yeah.
especially being a musician around different things. And so, I believe that that's what's happening. There is that disconnect. So I don't know if you're in the same wavelength as me with that, but
Yeah, it makes sense because I also have done ayahuasca twice, and
wow.
I also remembered that it was as if you're transitioning from this to another place. And how I was viewing the things during my near-death experience, it was as if in my ayahuasca I saw it in the same place. I don't know how to explain it. It's not really behind your eyes, but it was like more somewhere there, and yeah, you just see it. So I do get you. Yeah, and I also believe that. Yeah, and
Yeah,
I also do not promote it, but it can help you when used in a correct way,
absolutely. And
in my
that's what
opinion.
I think, that if someone needs to do that, it should be monitored in a good position, a good place with
Yeah.
good people doing that. And it's something that, and but what it should show people, this is the part a lot of people don't understand. So a lot of people who have kind of skepticism around near-death experiences, what I would say is, how can someone experience something that is similar to a psychedelic without taking a psychedelic? Meaning you had an experience just getting out of a hot tub and having this, I mean, and many people had near-death experiences that were completely sober from anything. Some of them had never even done a drug in their life, and they've had this, right? So it's like there's definitely something more going on. There's definitely something more going on. And I don't usually, like I said, I usually don't go down the psychedelic realm of things, but it's interesting to hear of somebody who's experimented with
Yeah.
that and had a perspective of both. Did the experience, so the near death experience, did it remove any fears of, and I don't even know if you had a fear of death or anything like that, but did it take anything away from fearing the purpose of who you are or the non-existence of who you are or anything like that?
um I was never really scared of death. I wanted to die.
Oh my
I'm
goodness.
sorry. So I can laugh about it now,
Yeah,
and I'm
yeah,
sorry if
yeah.
someone hears this. I can finally laugh about it, and I was never scared, so it didn't really take any fear away, but it did like confirm to me because I I had learned a bit about DMT, the DMT in your brain, and I have always believed that whatever you believe in, that is what you will experience. And I did believe back then that when you die that you get to like see your life and then you decide if you like it or not. I really did believe that.
Hmm.
And I literally experienced that. So it was a confirmation for me that yeah, um, it's gonna be like that. But I didn't know back then that um, I will switch my mindset about what will happen when I die. Because now I have like a different point of view, a same, but like things have changed. I changed the way I look at death since then. So yeah, I believe that we all choose what happens. That's why you gotta like be careful of what you believe and what you read. Yeah, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's really interesting that you were someone who, I don't want to say this about you, but yeah, it's kind of like you weren't really appreciating life because like you said, you didn't really
Not
want
at
to be
all.
here. So you didn't appreciate life. And then you were put in a position of almost dying, and you didn't. You decided to come back. Your soul decided to come back. Your whatever you are, that higher part of who you are. And you came back, and over time, over the next period of time, shifted your perspective and mindset of the appreciation of life and who you are. And so that's what I would say to anyone out there that feels that way, because it's hard. Like life can be difficult, but it shows you that you were in this place. You didn't come back and be like, "Oh, take me back. I don't want to do this." Like maybe you did at first, but obviously over the period of time, you somehow shifted. What were the things you were doing in your life that shifted you into this more positive place instead of being where you were?
after the NDE, I was still for around 4 years or something in my depression. Until 4 years ago, I don't know how many years have passed, but I was still a little bit in a depression. But I remember I lost my dad, by the way, 3 years ago, and he was very open-minded. Um, and he always talked about things that I couldn't really understand. Um, yeah, in this world, they say he has schizophrenia, but yeah, I have my own opinions, of course. So I didn't really get him, la la la, but because of hearing him, because of reading things, and I don't know, it was as if universe was trying to connect with me. I experienced weird things that I cannot explain, like the near death experience, like the lucid dreaming, the astral projections, the things that I was like, what the heck's going on? Um, and they really let me think about what is this life? And the more I looked for it, the more the more signs I saw, and but I wasn't really sure yet. Okay, I was still depressed. In the meantime, I was like cutting myself, crying every day. And the thing that actually changed everything was my spiritual awakening. That was actually the thing. I didn't really gradually change my mood, but I really changed it like that overnight. Not really overnight, but it's a crazy experience. I was laying down. It's a long story. I don't know where to start. Yeah, it's a thing that happened in like 2 minutes. So it's a crazy story. I don't know.
I kind of want to hear it. I kind of you had a spiritual awakening. Was that so that wasn't at 18. You said that was at 21. And so can you give us kind of like a short version of what happened or what would
Yeah.
really benefit someone listening? Like what was it
Okay.
that actually you experienced, if you don't mind sharing?
No, of course. The long version is on my YouTube channel, but it took me like 15 minutes to explain, so I'm just gonna
Mhm.
give it a bit
Sure.
of a short version. It was the 4th of April 2020, and I was crying in my room. I was at my lowest low that I had ever been, and I remember that I looked up and I asked for a sign because I wanted to go jump in front of a train. I was ready. I was ready, and I feel like universe knew it that I was ready. So I asked for a sign, and then I laid in bed, and I just spiritually awakened. I felt love, light, and I knew everything. I knew why, how, who. I just knew all the information that you can imagine, and it lasted for like a few seconds. And I was smiling. I was like, thank you. I couldn't believe that something like that exists. And from that moment, I was happy every day. Because, yeah, how can you not be happy if you know that there's something more in life and that you can, like, connect to something? So, yeah, I felt very good, and that was my spiritual awakening, very short.
Mm,
And then I went downstairs the next day. I hugged my dad and I was like, I get you now, I get you,
mm.
it's true. There is more. And yeah, that's it,
I
very
love
short.
that. I can tell you, and for anybody listening, any audience that listens into something like this, I can tell you there's plenty of people I've met and talked to and know that when they were in a space of sometimes some people refer it to as the dark night of the soul, the lowest of lows, like those points where you're just like point of no return. And I don't want anyone listening to have to go through that. So I don't wish that upon anyone. But a lot of people who get to that point many times have a moment like that, whether it's a visitation, whether it's a dream that turns into like a reality, whether it's an actual just overwhelming spiritual transformation. That's what I would call that. That's a spiritual transformation, a moment of just clarity or a feeling of, whoa, I'm much bigger than this. This is beyond anything that I thought I was. And in fact, even watching you just talk about it, you lit up. And I want to acknowledge that. And it's because I think that had an even more bigger impact than even your NDE. Your NDE was kind of your introduction to what's possible. The spiritual experience, even though it was only a moment of a few seconds, gave you feeling and the feeling of what you are. And that's how you can relate it because we live in a human body full of feelings and all the expressions that we have. And I think what you felt, if I can just interpret it, was love. You felt the love that we are. It's like anybody I talk to who has a real deep NDE, the biggest thing they'll always say is, when you die, you take love with you. Everything else is doesn't it doesn't matter if you're a famous musician, if you're a famous actor and you have like penthouses and you have yachts and you have, it doesn't matter. Beautiful body, beautiful look, like all that kind of goes. It's just the love that you take. So if you felt it in any way, then the impact is unmeasurable because you can no longer, you can't pretend it didn't happen. You could try, but you know it doesn't, it's never going to leave you. So it lit you up because it probably knew that your soul needed that because you weren't possibly um getting it. I don't know how else to say it.
Yeah.
And it probably helped you just to remember who you really truly are. Did I interpret that well?
Yes, of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
It helped me a lot because I was crying every day out of happiness, doing my gratitude. Thank you. Thank you so much. Ah, you have no idea. Like, can you imagine going from the most depressed to the happiest ever?
Hmm.
And I have read different explanations, possible explanations. There is also this book called Transcending the Levels of Consciousness that has like a page that's about um, one of the lower frequencies. And they also explain that in worst cases, people ask for help and they get a sign. And how I view it is that I had so much energy, like dark energy, but energy cannot be destroyed. It can only be uh, switched. How do you say it? So I had so much energy in me, but I still used that energy to look up and I asked for a sign from above. So I literally got the chance to like switch up that energy and it was as if everything just switched like literally because I was very ecstatic. How do you say it? I
Hmm.
was way too happy and that lasted for a long while, like nothing could go wrong. And I have also read other explanations, but a bit more, yeah, how do you say it? Maybe weird ones. There are different beings, like Andromedans, Pleiadians, and stuff. And this book explained how the Arcturians they have their energy, and when we get born, when we are born, or when we die, we always pass the Arcturian light, and they clean it for us so that we don't have the memories. Well, that book explained how the Arcturians they observe us, and when they see that someone is in very deep pain, they sometimes enter their body to live a bit through them so they can feel how it feels. So there are different
Wow.
explanations. So I don't know what it was or which
Yeah.
one it is, but yeah, it's interesting.
That's the first I've heard of that, but it wouldn't surprise me based on some of the people I've spoke with and how, because I talk to people who are have their channels and they get channeled and they feel things that, but I wanted to say as well that feeling you had, that overwhelming feeling of love and appreciation and like happiness, right? That is what
Yeah.
a lot of people get during an NDE. That's what I mean. Yours is almost like an
Oh.
NDE OBE, like out of body experience NDE that didn't quite get to the right place. And then later, you were given this feeling. So combined together, it's much like what a person would get in a big NDE. And that's why a
Yeah.
lot of people come back after an NDE and they don't know how to even associate around the people they're with because the energy they were working with up until that point no longer resonates well. This is why you hear people divorcing or separating or
Yeah.
like
Yeah. I
all this
get that.
stuff happens because they come back and they don't get it anymore.
Yeah.
Not in that place. And did you kind of experience that with friends or anything, or did you have any of that feeling? Or were you already
Um,
moving in that direction?
Yeah, well, with the NDE, I was way too distracted to really let that experience influence me a lot.
Mhm.
But I did feel that love because that was the reason why when I came back, I was like, wow, it was beautiful. Well, because yeah, I did feel the love, but I got distracted very quickly. But with the spiritual awakening, oh, you have no idea. My whole life changed. I, I used to drink caffeine, eat meat, take drugs. And since that experience, I was like, no, I stopped caffeine, stopped meat, and all of the things. And I also got rid of some friends because, yeah, were they really friends? If they
Mhm.
influenced me that way, no, they were not. Yeah, a lot changed, but also in the for the good, but also in a bit of a hard way because yeah, you see how happy I am that we're talking, but I don't really have many people like this in my life yet. I know that I am creating it myself and I have to stop saying that, but it's just still the truth.
Yeah.
So, yeah, a lot of things changed. I started questioning many things, like everything. Yeah.
Wow. Well, and you are creating it because we're having this conversation right now.
Yeah.
So you kind of are. It's the same thing I said when I started this podcast. It was like this was a passion project, and then as I spoke to more and more people, I was like, oh, these are like my people. Like these are, and same with my audience, same with the Soul Inspired family. Like I'm like, okay, I'm starting to kind of feel that. I get that with musicians too. If I'm really connecting with a musician and singing and playing and things like that, like there's a vibe, right? There's an energetic kind of feeling and resonance you have. So you're getting there, and you're you've got many years to gotta continue down that path, and there's like lots of things you're doing. So, did it influence the things you do in your life now? Like you said, obviously that it changed the way you kind of like take care of your, eating healthier, and did it influence any of the work you do, or are you right now just kind of transitioning into what you want to be doing in your life?
Yeah, it did transition my work life too, because you know how I'm a singer and I always wanted to become most famous singer. I want to be known, this, that, but I realized that that doesn't fuel me. That doesn't keep me alive. I like singing and I want to become a successful singer and I want to grow, but not anymore like I used to. Not the way like I used to. I just wanted everyone to clap and Eda, Eda. And now I'm like, no, I just want to be with everyone and I want to just have my community and love everyone. And also the 9 to 5 mindset. What the heck? No, I realized that it's like people don't even realize that they survive, that they wake up, work, sleep, and they live for the weekend. And I used to live for the weekend too, but since my awakening, I don't live like that anymore. It's like every day. Every day I'm excited for the day because but I get it if you have a 9 to 5 job. I get that it you create like this loop and you're stuck in the loop, but we have to try to get out of it if you want to, of course. Yeah, a
Absolutely. I was
lot.
gonna I was gonna say, first of all, you're definitely not doing that being up at 4 a.m. having a spiritual conversation with me, right? So 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 yeah, definitely you're not doing the 9 to 5 now. And you're right. The last thing you said there about, if you don't feel right. If you're in a job or you're 9 to 5 and you actually love what you do every day and you feel like you're making an impact and you have abundance of happiness around it and everything, then you're doing the right thing. But to what you're saying, if you don't feel that, if it doesn't make sense to you, you're here to live, right? So we're not supposed to all be programmed the same way. We're all different human beings. We're all here doing different things. And obviously, it looks like you now have a better understanding of who you are and you're moving down this different path. And as I can attest to what you're saying as a musician, I also always, dreamed to be in this famous musician. I had some really amazing opportunities, and I hope to continue to have amazing opportunities in the music industry. But my drive is no longer, um, I need recognition of what I can
Yeah.
achieve and what I do. It's more, how can I impact people now with my voice? How can I
Yeah.
impact people with my music? Can I make
Yeah.
one thing? I remember years ago, I changed one person's life, big time, and I was told about it, and it shook me for a few days. Like I was like, wow, this one song like made such a big impact. I'm like, oh, that's one person. Then I've achieved it. That's good. I'm good. Like it's like, okay, I did it, But then you have to keep going because we're given these gifts to use and to keep singing it. Like if I can achieve more, that's great. But that's the way you got to look at it. Like,
Yeah.
did you achieve that thing, And but we get confused, and it's not all you to blame, That's societal norms. It's the things that we're told. Look at people on TikTok looking at what, you have to have a
Oh,
million followers. You have to, it gets, it's an illness, it's a sickness, and it's something that I think we have to go through to understand. We can't see light if we don't see dark. And that's
mhm.
what I'm hoping that people are going to start seeing, especially younger generations, because they're going to know, they're going to feel it, and then they're
Yeah.
going to know. And I just have hope that they will see it.
Yeah. I really like it that you say that you just want to impact people. I have that too. That gives me so much happiness, so much more than feeding my ego. Like it was fun, but yeah, it's not gonna keep you entertained in the long term because yeah, it's still your ego. And I do believe that um I see in my life now that there are like two groups of people and it's splitting more and more and more. And I am now like in this transition and it's so hard. It's so hard to let go of these last things that keep me in the other world. um but yeah, I am getting to know more and more people like you, and that for me is a very beautiful sign that um there are such people, and that if I continue feeding these energy that I will slowly let go of the old, but it's hard.
I totally get it. And I keep coming to more of a conclusion around the ego a little bit in that we are also human. And part of our human experience is to have an ego. Without ego, we kind of wouldn't be doing anything. We'd be kind of just sitting
Yeah.
on a hill meditating. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
But like we wouldn't be really wanting to do. We want to eat. We wouldn't want to do anything. We wouldn't want to experience anything. And maybe we'll eventually evolve into that. I think though that we are here to experience ego and to experience feelings and experience like the amazing things that being a human can be. Um, but it's how are we using it, and are we going down the right path of using it the right way. And I think that we're still here to have fun, but it's a fine line. You got to find that balance.
Yeah.
And I think that's important because there are some spiritual teachers out there that will say, to lose the ego entirely. And I actually don't have that belief system. I think that some of our ego has to be intact in order for us to even um, have influence in this world because we are a human body and we're here. I think our
Mhm.
spiritual soul is probably there's no ego in that. And you know that you felt that. Um,
Yeah.
but that's what we're doing over there. We're here. So I
Yeah.
think, yeah, I don't know if you agree with that or not, but that's just my own personal.
Oh, I do agree because
Yeah.
it reminds me of my ayahuasca experience in which I lost my ego fully and we were just laying there on the floor, melting with earth, and we were useless, and I came back into reality and I felt so shitty because I was like, okay, now without the ego, what do I do? I'm just gonna sit in a corner in my room and just be. What do I do with my
Right.
life? And then I
Exactly.
grew back and I realized that I don't have to run away from the ego because I used to have this black and white mindset that, oh, I need to be fully spiritual and everything that has to do with the third dimension is bad. But that's not a reality. But you said we have to have still have fun. But the thing in still having fun is what is fun? Because in my mindset from years ago, having fun is doing drugs and going out.
Right.
And yeah, is that what we're supposed to have fun with? Are we supposed to drink and eat processed foods? Is that having fun, or are we programmed to um, see that as fun because our dopamine levels are um, yeah, you
No,
get me. I think.
I totally get what you're saying. I totally get what you're saying. And yeah, when I'm referring to fun, I mean experience. We're here to have experience, you
Yeah.
know? So exactly. So, and that's where I think people can get a little bit lost in though with fun, is that fun can be something that can actually be very harmful to our human experience. And so we don't want that, but I do have the strong belief that we're here to experience. And that's kind of what I get a lot of times from a lot of the people I speak with. So, but I totally get what you mean. You're right, because your mindset was around what fun was, and
Yeah.
that wasn't serving you or helping you in any way.
No.
And so
Yeah.
I can completely understand that. Do you currently like so a lot of people I talk to, they're kind of like working towards things they do. Like, how do people get in contact with you, or like what are the things you do? You say you're a musician. Do you have stuff out there that I can at least show the audience in case they want to kind of see what you do and the work that you do? Because down the road, you might be doing more spiritual work within your music, or who knows, right? Like, I try to get a little bit of information on who you are and where people can find you.
Yeah, so I have my singing, which is not fully connected to spirituality, but I try to implement it. And that's just on social media like Instagram and Spotify, just my name, Eda Hinkova. But I also have a YouTube channel and a Instagram and a TikTok for my more spiritual things. Like I post YouTube videos about all of these things and also to like help people. And I'm also working on my first product to help people with overthinking. And I wanna like in the future give the opportunity to do one-on-one sessions and that's with the name Hinkova Healing, so my last name and healing. But it's still new, and I'm very happy to talk to you also because um, you're also someone who's been doing this for for like a year or something, if I heard it correctly, and you have grown a lot. So it really motivates me because I post YouTube videos and put a lot of energy into it, but I am growing, but like very slow, and I don't know, it motivates me. So thank you.
No, I love that though. And but that's part of your light, right? That's part of probably what's come to you through all this experience. And you're just growing and starting it. And the thing I always say to people is if you're doing something in your life and it lights you up inside, never turn that light off. That just
Mhm.
means you're on the right track. So whether even if it's part time, it doesn't have to be like what you're putting all your energy into, but as long as you're growing it, you're growing it. You're planting that seed.
Yeah.
And then eventually it kind of turns into it. I was very overwhelmed with how well the podcast has done. Some people might look at it and say, "What? You should be at 300,000 followers already and all this stuff." Well, that wasn't even my intention. My intention was just to get on and have conversations with people. I would have been happy with 500 followers, you know. So like for me, it's more about that and just keep your light. That's what everybody does, and I can see that in you. That's what you're going to be doing. So you're going to be just fine. I can already tell. And so that Hinkova Healing, that's kind of the name brand you're going by. Is there a website around it, or it's just right now it's all social media?
There's no website yet, but I'm working on it. Yeah, but I do have a music website, but yeah, that's just for music, but
Okay.
not the Hinkova Healing. I'll do that soon.
The last question I always ask everybody I interview and I talk to, it's a very deep, important question, and it's whatever comes to you, like from a soulful level. And it's just I know you've got a lot of growing and things that we're all doing, but if you were to look at your life perspective right now on why we come here as a human body, like what is our purpose of our existence coming here and being a human?
I believe that we come here in this dense world to experience all these things so that we can have the human experience, but also to reawaken to our spiritual aspect, like the energetic thing part. And life is gonna be very tough intentionally so that we get the opportunity to spiritually awaken. But the more you push away the emotions and the things and you use distractions, the less chance you have to awaken, so we will get more pushed and pushed and pushed. So I believe that we come here to awaken, but some people, how do I explain it? I don't believe that everyone has to awaken in this lifetime. But on long term, I do believe that we will keep reincarnating until we awaken and we experience as many things as possible and we know ourselves so that we are on a high enough vibration that we do not have to go back to this third density.
Mm.
And also, I believe to learn how to manipulate energies and work with the natural elements. Yes.
Wow. I love that answer, and it definitely speaks to what I believe as well. That's the thing. Like if we were all here and we were all fully aware of everything and we were all spiritually evolved, I'm not sure what the world would look like. It'd be kind of funny. Maybe we'll all get there eventually, but I think that's what we call the afterlife. I don't know if that's the human experience. So yeah, I think there is this evolution. I think we grow tremendously fast being a human. So you kind of touched on, just that's the experience of it, right? And we just keep evolving. So this has been an amazing talk. Thank you so much, Eda, for coming on. I just really want to appreciate you and appreciate you having the conversation today.
I'm very grateful. I really loved it. I could still like go on for hours. I'm honest. Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you so much. I always turn to the audience and say, please continue to share, like, and subscribe to the Soul Inspired. If this episode spoke to you, please share it with somebody that you think that it would help. We love all comments, trying to keep it positive all the time, as I've mentioned many times, because we're here to really have this conversation and deepen our own spiritual growth. So thank you so much again, Eda, for coming on, and I'll see you next time on The Soul Inspired. So